All right. Looks like we've got a number of people that have joined the meeting. So again, this is Rick Wilson with Martin Associates. Thanks for taking time out of your day to day. Hopefully your businesses are getting back to normal and doing well. We're excited to welcome you to the presentation today. What's new in Acumatica and version 2021 R2. So Acumatica recently released this update. It's packed with a lot of new features, ranging from everything from new consolidated toolbar to streamline functionality to Microsoft Teams integration, and as they say, a lot more. But we'll be going over that in detail. Before we get started and I introduce our presenter, a couple of housekeeping items. The presentation is being recorded today, so we'll actually be emailing that out, a link to the recording out to everyone in a couple of days. And also, if you have questions, go ahead and either use the Q&A or chat. Either one is fine for your questions, and then we'll get to those at the end of the presentation. And I think that's it. So Chris Isbell from Martin Associates, he's a director here with M&A, will be presenting today. So Chris, it looks like you're ready. So I'll turn it over to you. Take it away.
I am. Thank you, Rick. That was delightfully formal. Again, thanks everybody for joining us. And we're excited to talk about what's new in Acumatica 2021 R2. And we'll get jumping right in here. Maybe. There we go. All right, so as Rick mentioned briefly, there's a lot of new features. There's over 90 in this R2 release. And just a quick reminder, or maybe you're learning this as well, there are 2 releases each year done by Acumatica. There's R1 normally around the March/April timeframe. And a lot of times at Acumatica's big summit event, which is typically at the end of January, they start showing a lot of the new features that are going to be coming out in R1 and R2. You know, it's newer features and ones that might come out a little later in the year. So that's always a good time to attend that show. Shameless plug. And R2 is generally done around the end of September, beginning of October. And so that just happened, like Rick said. So it's a good new release. So not only are there, bug fixes and things like that, but just as you can see in the 6 months since R1, they've added, a lot of new features covering pretty much every area: manufacturing, field service, commerce, distribution, finance. So they do a lot of investment in their R&D, which is pretty awesome. Okay, so we're going to jump right in, and I'm going to break this down by, I'm going to say series or module. So like finance and CRM and other areas. And then we'll do a live show of some of these new features, and others we'll just kind of talk about. And at the end of our presentation, there's a couple links if you want to learn more. There's the Acumatica virtual event recording where you can see all the different features and breakouts, like by manufacturing and commerce. And they kind of dig into some other pieces since they have the ability to do that. And then the R2 release notes, which is it's kind of a big PDF file. It's like 300 pages. But it is chock full of all these new features and goes into a lot of good detail, kind of explaining how to turn them on, how to set them up, how to use them. So it's actually pretty handy as far as release notes go. I don't know, I say that about software release notes, but this one's pretty good. All right, so finance. And I'm not highlighting all of the new features that are in there. They're in the release notes, but I'm highlighting some, I think, bigger ones that we'll be able to cover and talk about. The first one is an update to customer refund processing, and that's also a little bit related to being able to apply unreleased AR invoices to any open payment records, which is kind of a nice feature. If you have a payment sitting out there, you can take a bill and apply it right then, which is a good new addition. They added the ability to match bank transactions against multiple payments or receipts. So you can have, let's say, one big deposit, and that's in your bank file when you download that from the bank, but it's really made up of many separate, receipts or payments, and you need to match it that way. That's new. Some updates to the handling of the AP document recognition for, OCRing PDF files and turn those into invoices. They made that faster and as well added just some new features. A big one that kind of underlies a lot of the system is the ability to have separate base currencies inside of a single tenant. So if you have multiple companies, company A, company B, you can have multiple, or you can have different base currencies for those companies. We'll talk about that. That one's, of course, challenging to show, but I'll go into that in a little more detail. Also on the OCR, you can, or the system can search for the vendor record by the email address when you're processing an incoming email, if you have that turned on. Then there's a bunch of user interface enhancements, and we'll kind of cover those. All right, so after talking about that, let's jump in and show some of these things a little bit. So customer refunds and applications. The old way, I should say prior to R2, is to manually create a customer refund in the system, enter all the details, how much it is, GL accounts, all that fun stuff, and then apply that to an open payment, prepayment, or credit memo. And the new way, which saves some time and hopefully reduces, fat fingering type errors, you just find that open payment or prepayment or credit memo, and then right from the menu, and they've kind of tweaked the menu system on a lot of transaction areas, you'll see that. You can just select refund as the action instead of having to manually create the refund. And also kind of in line with that, with some of the same logic anyways, is you can apply unreleased AR invoices to any open payment record. So if, someone paid or overpaid, something like that, but had another invoice, you can apply that right then and there. So let's jump in and show that. Okay. All right, payments and applications, credit memos. I have a tab open for that. So this is R2. You notice it looks pretty similar, but when we get in here, you'll notice the menus are a little bit different, and I'll talk about that briefly as well. Okay, so let's find a payment here. So we'll take one from, ABC Studios. Currently can see this payment is closed, but I'm going to open it up anyways. All right, so if I look at my application history, I can see that this was applied to a invoice for ABC Studios. But for this example, you can only apply a customer refund to an open payment, one that has not been applied. So I'm just quickly going to reverse that application. This reverse application is not new, but it's not new in R2, but I think it's pretty new, generally speaking. So I'm going to release that. And what this is going to do is unapply that payment and record that it was unapplied. So now this payment is back in the open status, you can see right here. And that will light up my new refund menu option right from your, if you want to call this 3 dots or ellipsis or the more menu. I'm going to hit here, and you'll notice there's a refund option. So let's talk about this menu item in general anyways. So much like if you're on an area in the menu and you star something to make it as a favorite, gets added to your favorites up here. The new menu system here with this ellipsis, more button, whatever you want to call it, you can favorite things here as well. So if you wanted to favorite customer info or details or the refund button, you'll notice they get added right up here as buttons onto the top kind of menu. So instead of having to hit the dot, dot, dot and refund, you can just hit refund. And the logic will apply if it works or not, all that fun stuff. But that's a new feature here in 2021 R2, which is pretty neat, actually. Can just kind of make things a little faster. So I'm going to jump right in and I'm going to hit refund. And you'll notice it makes a customer refund for me, fills out all my information, my payment amount, automatically applies that to that open payment. And let's just say check 1, 2, 3. I wrote them check 1, 2, 3, and I will release that. Maybe. Let's save that and then I'll release it. All right, so that is the refund process, which is pretty neat, good new enhancement. So awesome. Let's jump back to the show and see what we'll show next. All right, bank transaction matching. So if you guys use the import bank statements or process bank statements or the newer more automated download of bank transactions, that we can now match a single bank transaction from that to multiple payments or match it to multiple receipts and disbursements. So they're kind of related but a little different, and we will cover both of those. All right, so let's jump into banking, and I'm going to go to process bank transactions. I have already imported my matching transaction, so kind of save some time there. All right. So here for my good demo cash account, I have 2 bank transactions to match in here, cleverly named big AP check batch and big AR check batch. You can see there's a sizable disbursement, sizable receipt. But over on the right, in the match to payments and match to invoices, you can see you can match to multiple documents there as well. But match to payments, if I uncheck this, you'll notice that, oh, hey, there's no check in Acumatica here that's dated 10/19 or within 5 days and for that amount. However, if I hit, oh, I know this is a big batch, I want to match this to multiple payments. Now, you see there are multiple records that show up, 5 in case. So I've got refunds coming out, and then I've got these AP checks. And magically, if I select one of these checks, you'll see it's got a running total up here in the header area saying, okay, you've matched 199 so far and you got 50,000 to go. Select that one, that was a big one. Select that one, hey, look at that, that matches. So that's pretty sweet. I can save that, and that records that that has been fully matched. So let's look at the AR option here. So here's my big, let's say it's a big deposit, right? You make a big lump sum deposit and your bank records it that way and sends it to you in the transaction file that way. Some banks do, some do not. But let's say they did. And you'll notice by default it says, oh, hey, you're going to have to make some for that. But you know that this was actually a big deposit made up of multiple cash receipts. So I'm going to go to match to payments. I'll say match to multiple. that will also highlight this option here, match to receipts and disbursements. So currently, if I check that, it shows all my receipts and disbursements from whatever module, as long as the amount matches the type here, right? Like whether it was a receipt or disbursement. So in this case, it's a receipt type match. So it's going to show everything that came into my account, or it's going to show disbursements as well. So you can select whatever you need to select, whether that's money going in, money coming out, but it shows kind of everything to let you make the accurate selections here. I happen to know that my check covered these 3 payments. So I can just jump in, doop, and now I am matched to that, and I can save that. And at that point, you know, you can run into your bank rec, anything like that, but pretty handy new feature to accommodate that scenario. All right, let's move on. Okay, AP document recognition updates. Some of you might be seeing this for the first time, which would be cool, but we'll cover that a little bit. That also merges in with the vendor searching by email address. So if you can set up an email account in Acumatica, a system email like, you know, ap@mycompany.com, and have that automatically listen for emails. And if those emails have a PDF file, it will pump that into Acumatica and try and do the recognition and the matching. And in R2, if it can't find the vendor record, like by vendor ID or vendor name, it will look at the email address that email is from. And as long as that email address matches the account email right here under the contacts tab on the vendor, under the additional account info, if that email address matches, it will relate that that invoice to that appropriate vendor, in this case, all fruits. So that's pretty neat. Let's jump in and kind of see where that happens. So if you have that plug in, or if you're very new and have that as part of your system, under payables, you'll have an incoming documents transaction. So I will just simply hit a new one. All right, and let me drag open an invoice. So all you have to do here, and you can do this manually with this new feature without having to listen to an email, is take an invoice, a vendor invoice, drag it over here to this big up arrow, and you'll see the invoice and hit recognize. So the recognize process used to take anywhere from, I think they said like 15 to 80 seconds. So they have worked hard to speed that up quite a bit. And you'll see, hey, it found my vendor, it found my invoice date, it found my invoice number, it found my amount. And then here on the bottom grid under the details, it found all of these options. The description, the alternate ID, the unit cost, everything. So if I need to link a particular line to a purchase order, I could do that right from here. And then for the details, they kind of made this a lot nicer where you can clear the whole table or add some additional, you know, mapping columns or add a column. And you can select different things. I'm going to get rid of that. But you can see when you hover over an area like vendor, hey, it found it from, okay, right here. That's cool. It found the date from right here. You can see that it's smart and reads the actual words. It found my reference number from this field. If I needed to map anything, you can just simply click on this field and select one or more values, and that will map it over here into the correct area. But again, you can see we found our item ID and the description and the cost and all that fun stuff. So they sped that up. They allowed you to map some things here. Like if this was tied to a purchase order number, you could read that from somewhere. And let's just say I want to take that description and map that to workstation supply down here in the notes area. You can see it mapped that. And now you can just save and continue. So they worked hard on this new feature, which is, oh, it's pretty neat. All right. So you can see my description came over, all of my items. If you need to map these items to like a non-stock item in your system, that's doable. And it can remember and record that, you know, that vendor calls whatever non-stock item a certain ID or something like that. So you can remember all that. And, all right. So that covers that. All right, a big one again in the system, multiple base currencies inside of a single tenant for different companies. So just as an example, you have a company in the US and their base currency is dollars. Let's say you got a company in Canada and their base currency is Canadian dollars. Before this release, and maybe even still there's some current restrictions around this. But before, you'd have to have those as two separate tenants in the system, or you would have to have the Canadian company, or the US company, I guess, but we'll go with the Canadian company, have a base currency of dollars, but do all their transactions in Canadian dollars. Whereas now you can have the system, have those companies be set up in the system with their own appropriate base currency, and you know, the system will do some currency mapping and all kinds of fun things there. But if you need to, you know, even do internal purchasing from those companies back and forth with different base currencies, that is possible as well. Like I said, there are some restrictions around that currently because this is new. This basically works with the core. So, you know, GL, AP, AR, banking, as well as inventory, sales order, purchase order. But it currently does not work with manufacturing or field service, I don't believe. They're gonna do that eventually, but currently it does not work with those. But it is a pretty large system change, as you can imagine, to be able to accommodate multiple currencies within the same tenant, but just separating that out by company. So that's a pretty big one that I think people have been asking for a while, and they were able to get that done, which is pretty sweet. Alrighty, I believe that is it for the finance area. Again, that's not all the features. A full exhaustive list is in that release notes guide, which is pretty comprehensive. Now let's jump into CRM. Okay, so maybe you knew, maybe you didn't, but Acumatica has a built-in CRM in the product. It's, I mean, you have to license it, but it just is in there. So that covers leads, opportunities, marketing emails, sales quotes. That's mostly about it. So some of the new features, there's a new workflow for sales quotes, and we'll hopefully show that. Some new relations between CRM entities, like if you need to relate an opportunity to a case or a sales order or something like that, that's doable. And there's some reverse relationship mapping there, which is pretty neat. Enhanced support around UDS, like when you're transferring an opportunity to a quote, if you've got some user-defined fields, those can be mapped over. Another pretty neat one is predefined business events and notification templates around all kinds of things in the CRM world. So that's new leads or assignments and things like that. So that's pretty helpful, at least to make use of that and get started. If you're doing marketing emails, they have a new integration with SendGrid, which is an email sending service, very popular. So you can send out emails through that, not just marketing emails, but I think that's mainly why it happened. And that allows the tracking of, did it get delivered? Was there an error? Who opened it? Who clicked on it? All those kind of metrics are now capturable in the system through that integration with SendGrid and the ever-present UI enhancements. All right, so let's jump in and show a couple of these things. So we'll cover the sales quotes, the relationships between CRM entities, and I'll show you the predefined business events and how those are pretty helpful. Okay. All right, so let's jump over to, let's just look at my open opportunities here. All right, you might notice like conditional formatting. That has been around for maybe a couple of versions, maybe in 2019 R2 or 2020 R1 or something. It's a good way to take a generic inquiry and highlight certain things and build some logic around what they look like. So let's jump into, we'll go over to my new software here. Glad I'm sharing my screen since I popped open a new window. All right, so here's our opportunity. It's got a certain status, it's open. It's in the prospect stage. You'll notice a lot of tabs here, so they've kind of moved and renamed some of these. But on the details tab, you can see these are the products that we are working on or services. In this case, let's say they're getting 25 licenses of the base product. And quotes. Okay, cool. This opportunity has a sales quote. Let's open that up. Just so I know, you can have multiple quotes for an opportunity if you need them. All right, so this quote is in the draft status. So again, using this new menu system with your ellipses, ... We're gonna have to come with a good name for that, by the way, so that if we ever talk to, we say, push the 3 dots or something. All right, so all of these options here under processing or record creation. So that's a lot of the new workflow around, okay, what do I need to do for this quote? I can send it or mark it as sent. I can record that the customer accepted it, or mark it as converted to an order or an invoice, or if I do one of these, should get marked automatically. So there's a lot of neat logic around these things that have happened. There's also a new workflow engine, like a visual workflow engine, kind of in the customization area, where you can make changes to some of the logic around how things transfer from one to another. But you could easily take this quote, hey, we want it in software, let's convert that to an invoice. And I'll have a little pop-up here to say, oh, okay, do I want to recalculate my prices or not, or discounts? I'll just say, great. Awesome. So that new invoice here, I'll take it off hold. And, oh, I guess we're on credit hold. Let's see. Let's say it's due 30 days. That's the November. We'll just say 21st. And what release that? Guess that customer doesn't have default terms. All right, so now I have a wonderful invoice from that sales quote. And let's just refresh that quote. Okay, now I have my sales quote out there, and it's, hey, look at that. My sales quote is related to this AR invoice. Pretty neat. It did that automatically. I like that. All right, so that's kind of the sales quote process. Let's jump in back to that opportunity. Actually, I don't want that one. I do want that one. Okay, so off of that original opportunity, when they bought the software, they said, hey, do you have any new laptops? Yeah, we sell laptops. Okay. So I added a new opportunity, but I wanted to record that this opportunity came from that first one. So I can do that under my relations tab, jump in here and say, hey, the source of this current opportunity, 305, was another opportunity. And let me see if I can make that bigger. Number 394. So that automatically recorded that this opportunity is related to this one as kind of the source. And if I look at 394, the system automatically, because of that, because some new logic in R2, if I look at my relations here, this is related. Actually, there's two of them because that invoice got made. So you can see, but I can't, these are grayed out, like I can't edit them or anything because they are not the source. They're just the derivative here. But it does get recorded automatically on both sides of the balance here, you know, who's the source, who's the derivative, who's the parent, who's the child. I think those are the four that that map up. So besides being able to say, hey, all these things happen, there are other ways to relate records here in the system, but the source and derivative and parent child and the way they automatically get displayed and recognized on both sides of the equation is new to R2, which is pretty cool. All righty. So let's jump into the business templates. So I'm just going to jump in here and say, oh, business events. There are a number of new business events. The ones called BC are the big commerce integration new business events that I was at least going to talk about. So they have some new business events here on the e-commerce side as well. But everything with a CR, which I guess is short for CRM, all of these guys right here, CR, account new activity. So these are business events that Acumatica has made and loaded into the new system to you know, kind of help you and help the system think for you all around CRM. So just so you know what a business event is, it's basically a system trigger, like when something happens, like a new record gets added or a status is met, something like that. In the system, it can trigger some kind of alert. And those alerts are normally like send out an email or an SMS message. Can also like update a record if you needed it to. And they added a new one this time that can make a CRM task. That's a new business event subscriber that they added. But if you just jump in real quick and say, oh, okay, let's look at a new case. So the case is assigned to a new owner and it meets all this logic. So the case owner ID changed, or the record was inserted, and the new field value of the owner ID is not empty. If it meets all those criteria, then it does two things, it looks like. One, it sends a mobile push notification if you have that feature turned on. And it also sends an email, and you can look at that email and open that up to see what it looks like. Hey, here's all your information. So what's neat about this is it's a great way to get used to business events and see how Acumatica has designed them, and then, you know, make use of them. So pretty neat. And they've done a number of them. As you can see, if I jump back here, just around here, there's, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 10, 12, plus the other one. So it's a good way to get an introduction to business events. I think they're going to keep putting a lot of effort into that. It's pretty neat. Alrighty. So that's been finance and CRM in a little detail. Let's jump back to the new features and talk about them. All right, so order management. You can do customer refunds on a sales order and an invoice now. It's pretty neat. You can do drop shipments for projects. That's a new purchase order type in the system. If you need to drop ship something directly to the location of a project, that's a new purchase order, which is helpful. Item substitution, cross-sell, upsell enhancements. If you're on a sales order and need to say, oh, hey, are you interested in this product as well? So it's commonly sold together or something like that. Paperless picking. So if you're using the Acumatica warehouse piece around, you know, the pick, pack, ship stuff, and you've got your handheld devices, instead of having to print out a pick sheet, you know, with barcodes on it and all that fun stuff, using the Acumatica mobile app on those barcode scanning machines, you can just pick that order or have that order assigned to you, or, you know, pull it out of a picking queue and just start going through and picking everything right on the device. It tells you where to go, you know, hey, this item is in bin XYZ, and go over here and pick it, instead of having to use a pick sheet or anything. So pretty neat. Manufacturing. So Acumatica does keep up with manufacturing, unlike maybe another product I know of. So some big features here were pre-assigned serial and lot numbers when you're doing a production order. I think I talked about that in a little more detail. Actually, all these I do, except for firm scheduling and production orders. So let's jump in there. So on a production order, a lot of times, if that item being produced is a serial or lot tracked item, you know, prior to R2, you would only get to record that serial number or lot number after it was produced and moved to a, you know, its location, which, you know, was not always great. People might have needed to, you know, print out barcode labels or information with that serial or lot number, you know, before it was actually produced. And so now that system lets you do that, which is good. Visual production schedule for your manufacturing orders. This is what the screen looks like. So kind of up top here, you've got your header / filter area, where you can limit it to a certain order type or warehouse or any of these options, date ranges. And in this middle grid and corresponding bottom grid, the production order Gantt chart and the work orders, it'll show you, oh, hey, these are my orders that come in here. Here's where they're supposed to work. So you can kind of get a good visual clue of where things are and when they're going to happen and any potential bottlenecks and things like that. So a lot of effort went into this one. Some shipping enhancements around production orders. So if you're on a production order, you can now make a new purchase order for any lines that have an an expense for outside processing services. Like if you have something needs to go to another vendor to get plated or processed somehow, you can create a purchase order right from your production order. Same thing for a shipment. You can make a new vendor shipment and record that in Acumatica if you need to send some items out to a vendor to get processed. All righty. Some field service updates. So if you have an opportunity or project in the system, you can now quickly create a service appointment or service order right from that opportunity or project. That is new. You can track the profitability of items, an individual item on a service order. And there are 2 new service contract billing types. So if you're going to like bill everything up front and then anything else after that is not included as billed, or you bill up front and then you can add any other charges and bill for those as they go on. And some mobile app enhancements around the appointments and starting and stopping them and looking up items and things like that. All right, so those are not all the areas. They had a fair amount as well. So in the commerce area, so if you have an integration with BigCommerce, you can do gift wrapping and some personalization, like if you need to put your initials on a hat or whatever. The integration with BigCommerce can handle that, and it comes in as a column on the sales order, the personalization piece. It does support the multiple base currencies in different companies. There's a new support if you use Shopify for e-commerce or there's a new integration with Shopify payments to record, how your customers paid. And like I said earlier, some predefined business events for records get aboard, like abandon the shopping cart or the refund doesn't happen or whatever. On the payroll area, there is an integrated payroll module in Acumatica. So just some enhancements to PTO banks and calculation of wages and some new payroll dashboards and more. In the project area, some inventory tracking, so you can receive inventory and have it get related right to a project. Reclassification ability of bills and GL transactions, and an enhanced visibility of all the project transactions that have gone on. System wise, they've done a fair number or fair efforts with the workflow capabilities. So added some new things like you can save changes before a certain action is performed, like, oh, before I transfer this, I need to save my changes or something. In the user interface UI, the redesigned form toolbar, which I showed you, where you can add favorites. And then for us kind of tech nerds, there's a DAC, which is a data access class, schema browser, so you can a lot easier kind of find and see all the pieces Acumatica, how the data is defined and stored, so you can know what to use or what table to use, like when you're building a generic inquiry or something like that. And then on business events, they added that new CRM task subscriber. So instead of like sending an email or sending a text message or something, when you trigger a business event, you can have it create a CRM task and assign that to somebody and relate it to whatever record it needs to get related to, opportunity, sales order, whatever. So again, this is just a sampling, kind of a highlight. And again, the links that I talked about at the beginning. So I highly recommend, if you want to learn more, checking out one or both of these. The release notes are available here. And I think we have a link to that on our website, and I believe we'll have this presentation up there so you can visit it that way. I'm sure you can Google for it as well. So the release notes are, like I said, pretty extensive. And if you want to watch the videos and the demos, the launch event, if you jump over to that, just to show you what it looks like, it'll go to this page and you fill out your form and watch the event, and you can see, the launch, and then you can, if you need to dump into any of these other deep dives based on additions, you can see those as well. It's pretty handy. And again, here's the release notes. So like I said, it's pretty extensive. If you want to learn more information, let's say on the finance, on the matching of bank transactions, you can jump to that. And it, like I said, it gives you a lot of really good information, screenshots, what the changes were, and kind of walks through how you would do it and what you might see. So very, very handy resource. Alrighty. So lastly, if anyone has any questions, we're happy to take those now. If you made it through the whole show, thank you. I appreciate your patience. And then if you want to learn anything else, please reach out to your account manager or Betsy or even Rick, and then me as well, of course. So I thank you all for paying attention. Hopefully you learned something.
Great. Thanks. Thanks, Chris.
Sure.
A lot of good stuff there. I know I listened to the event, but this was a good way to distill it all down into some specific items there. So as far as questions, looks like in the host area, it looks like we got one here. Was there going to be anything about Teams integration? I guess I mentioned that in the teaser.
Yeah, way to go.
Sorry. What do you have to say about that, Chris?
Yep. I was not able to show that. And I want to be able to eventually. But in the virtual launch event, they do cover that. But if I talk to it briefly, it's kind of I'm going to say in stage one of how, they're integrating. Right. But let's say you're on, let's say like a support case or something like that in Acumatica, and you need to either interact with somebody via Teams or maybe you just want to post it there so people are aware of it. That kind of scenario is covered where from that, let's say support case to Acumatica, you can put like a link to that into a Teams channel, and then kind of dialogue back and forth via Teams and see the record from Teams and see some information on that, on the Teams part. I'm not sure everything that's covered as far as what the integration does, but I like that they're working that way because I know a lot of people use Teams. I don't know if there was anything particular you were looking to see or learn about that piece, but thanks for the question. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's also, when I saw the demo, it was like as simple as anytime you're like where there was a contact, there was like an icon, a Teams icon if you wanted to message them.
Yeah. Yep.
But I agree, when they were talking about it, they were saying this was kind of a 1.0, attempt. So certainly, follow up with us, Amy, and we can expand on it with you.
Yes, I made a note as well.
Looks like on the host side here, there's a question, should we or when can we upgrade?
Well, that's a good question.
Yeah.
So this version is out. It came out early October, which is, I guess, kind of funny to say. That's not terribly long ago, but I guess when the last third of October, pretty much. So it is available. If you are, let's say, hosted by Acumatica, the probably best thing to do is we can request an upgrade sandbox for you. It's a free 90-day sandbox where they take your current instance, they copy it, and then they upgrade it to this new version so you can verify that everything works and make sure that the features you want to see are there and make sure nothing's broken, and especially how many customizations. But I would take advantage of that. All you have to do is ask us and say, hey, I'd like to see that upgrade. And we can, spin up that sandbox for you, that 9-day sandbox, or actually have Acumatica do that. And you can get in and test and make sure everything's good. And then as long as you're good with that, we can just tell Acumatica to go ahead and upgrade you live and get that scheduled. If you're on premise, you host it yourself. It's just a matter of reaching out to, your account manager and saying, hey, I'd like to upgrade, or I'd like to spin up a sandbox where we basically help you do the same thing. Spin one up where you can test and try it out. And then if it works and looks all good, we can go live. So any time would be good and handy.
All right. There's one other one here. I guess it was related to the paperless picking feature.
Mm-hmm.
So what type of devices can you use when you're using that?
That's a good question. Really, it's a fairly big list as long as it's supports the Acumatica mobile app. So it can be like a dedicated, like barcode scanning machine from any of the, the known makers.
Right, like Motorola or Zebra.
Motorola, correct. Yep. As long as it has support for either Android or iOS, I think, because that's what the mobile app runs on.
Right.
Or it can even just be, your phone.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Looks like that's all questions that we had. So
Awesome.
if there's any more, I guess I'll wait a second or two. Gone. All right. Well, I guess we'll go ahead and wrap everything up. Thanks a lot, Chris.
Thank you.
Appreciate all the good information, and thanks everybody for your time. We really appreciate your interest. Hopefully this was helpful, and like I said before, you'll all be getting an email with a link. So if you need to check any of this information out again or pass it on to a colleague, you'll be able to do that. So I'll let everyone go. Have a good day, everybody. Thanks again, Chris.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Right. Yeah, bye-bye.